Yeah, there we go. All right, man. Look, we're recording now. I had to stop you in your tracks, Ty, before you started giving away all the nuggets before we had that record button hidden, man. So first of all, let me kind of set the stage here. Yeah, I just want to help people understand, how much you've made a difference in my life the last, I think 6 months now. It's
Yeah.
been a quick and just like a short burst of energy we've had together and some successes we've had together. But what you've done and how I admire the success that you have, and how far you've come along is very admirable. So I just want people to understand, why you're here is because I value you as an individual,
Yeah.
what you do, and how I've been able to continue to learn from you as a student. And I said, you know what? We got to give Mr. Ty Cohen on here to talk some good nuggets, man. So let's jump in, man. So you were just talking to me about something as far as grow, because you asked me about the growth thing, what
Yeah.
your shirt say, and you were sharing a couple nuggets. So let's start off with that, and then we'll go into whatever else the conversation takes us into, because it's going to go in some fun places, man. So what were you saying? Your three things as far as it was relating to growth. Let's kick it off that way.
Yeah. So let's look at your shirt, right? So let's show them your shirt. So this piqued my attention right here. Always on the grow,
That's
right?
right.
But, what does your shirt say? And then looking at this, it kind of reminded me of something that I started practicing a few years back, and that is trying to be as intentional as possible and aware as possible with almost every movement that's made on a day-to-day basis, right? And even what you're planning on doing. Because each of those movements can do one of three things for you. It could either push you forward to where you want to go, providing you know where you want to go. That's one of the starting points, knowing where you want to go. It could not do anything for you, so you're stagnant, like you're not making any movement, or it could push you back. So the example was, as we were getting prepared, I'm pouring my green juice in here, right? This is an Organifi green juice drink here. And I said, listen, even with something as simple as this, right? This becomes more of a habit now, where I can drink a green juice that's going to help me to get more clarity, help me to be more present, help me to have more energy, especially if I believe all the marketing that goes into this, right? Or, man, I like Pepsis. You know what I mean? I like
Yeah,
root beer. I could have picked up a Pepsi. I could have picked up a root beer. Now, we don't have any here because that's part of the other scheme of things.
sure.
But that's a choice, right? But the Pepsi, the root beer is probably gonna not give me that edge that I'm looking for, right? The sugar that's in it. I mean, there's so many other things that come along with it. So something as simple as that drink right there,
You
and
you
deciding what to put into your body.
Well,
Help.
I mean, that we can go the health and fitness direction, which I mean obviously matters tremendously in making moves and becoming successful. But I think where you started and sort of your transformation, because remember we talk a bit, offline, whether we're in the depths of helping other people, and then you and I get on our calls independently, and we just talk about how we're in these transformative moments. I want to take people back to your earlier days where you were having these frustrations in life, and it was really about helping your family get out of the rut, and you stepped out of being the guy that you were before and
Yeah.
now being the tycoon that you are today. Because what I want to draw from is the reality of what life is like right now, and a lot of people are suffering right now, dude. I mean, they are in some very bad positions. Obviously not people that have developed this lifestyle and created themselves to be in these better positions, but for those that are going through the struggle right now with COVID and the election turning over to a new president and variety of other factors, help shed some light on those people that are out there right now that might be where Ty Cohen used to be, and walk them through sort of that, hey, here's where I started, here's what I did, and this is what I was able to do. Because it's nice to talk about where we're at, but I like to bring it back to where we've come from, right? So it's always a fun thing.
Yeah, and there's so many different things. Like you talk about the election, you talk about COVID. That's on top of the day to day. That's on top of a day to day of being human, right?
Yeah.
Of hopefully you and your spouse or your significant are, on one accord this day, right? Hopefully your kids are acting right if you have kids, right? Hopefully, your neighbors are acting okay. And so there's so many different things that come in with being one of us, like being a human, right?
Yeah.
Dogs have it pretty easy. Dogs, especially if they're domesticated, they get water, they get food, they don't have to worry about, how the light bills getting the lights getting shut off. So my story is a little bit different, and everybody has these things that they're going through, and everyone has this life that they live up until this point, right? Up until this second, and this second, and this second. So for me, I was born with something called sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is a blood disorder that is a chronic blood disorder. It's supposed to kill you. Like, especially when I was born with it, it was taking people out at 16, sorry, not 16, in their teens, in their 20s. My older sister, Gwen, she was born with it. She passed at 27. I talk to her and I try to help as many people as possible, but I know with it, so I'm in these support groups. And I'm seeing on a weekly basis where people who are born with sickle cell anemia are passing in their 20s, in their 30s. And a lot of it has to do with things that are uncontrollable as well as controllable. So that was my reality. Going in the hospital, never knowing a day when I did not have to be concerned with, am I going to get sick, right? So when you get sick, you go into these pain crises, man, and they are just tough. It's like the only way that they can kind of minimize the pain is with heavy dosages of either morphine or Dilaudid or fentanyl or Demerol or something like that. So my reality was being this 8-year-old, this 9-year-old, all the way up until pretty much my 30s when I learned to cope with it a little bit better. And personal development came into more of a play. But my reality was being in the hospital for weeks at a time sometimes. So sometimes I'd go in the hospital and I'm in there for a day or two. Other times it'd be 2 or 3 weeks. It'd be a month. So I went through having to learn how to use my right arm all over again because of this thing. I went through, having 2 hip replacements, one before I was 30, one just recently a couple years back. And it didn't help that I had this active lifestyle, right? Motorcycles and dirt bikes and all this other stuff that I should not have been doing because of this. But one of the pivotal points for me, man, was we always have these things, and sometimes if we're open to it, then we'll catch on to it, right? I'm in Yale New Haven Hospital, major hospital. I'm having a sickle cell anemia crisis. I had been in there for about 3 weeks. I'm 12 years old. Outside of my hospital door, I hear my mother and my doctor talking, and the doctor, in a really matter-of-fact way, says, "Hey, Mrs. Cohen, you shouldn't expect your son Tyrone my real name Tyrone, to live past the age of 17." Now, they didn't think I heard this conversation, right? I'm in the freaking room, pull up the sheets, man. I'm 12 years old. I'm thinking, shit, I got 5 more years. Can we curse on this thing? I just cursed.
Yeah, please, man. There's no filters here, brother.
All right, so I'm
You're good.
I got 5 more years, right? So I just start bawling, man. I pull the covers over my head, doing what a 12-year-old does, and I'm crying. I'm crying. 5 years old is an eternity when you're 12, but you also know it's not much time. So get out of the hospital. A couple years later, this is when my older sister Gwen died, right? So she dies, and I'm about 17 at this time, and it's becoming even more real. I'm like, oh my God, this. I'm thinking back. I can hear this conversation vividly. I can see it. I can hear it. So now we also lived in one of the worst areas. I mean, this was an area during the crack and heroin epidemic. I was raised in a housing project called Five Panic Village. And this thing, man, state troopers were afraid to go in there. Police officers were afraid to go in. We had this thing called Martin Luther King Drive. And they were afraid to go there because they would get shot at. They would be ran out of their cars. I mean, it sounds like something that you would see in a movie, but this was the reality. We had a state trooper that was ran over and killed there. So now I'm in that environment. I'm also thinking that I'm gonna pass soon because I don't have much time. So I'm like, shit, I might as well just go in and live life. So I started to adapt to the environment, started to do things that, I saw my family members and a lot of my friends doing, things that were not really positive things. And it wasn't until, my mom and dad were separated, but my father knew to always come by and be in our life, to be present, right? So he was a church-going guy. At that time, I didn't really believe in God much because I'm like, if there's a God, why am I born with the sickle cell anemia? Why are you seeing my friends at 16, 17 years old getting killed by one another, right? So my belief in God was like non-existent.
Right.
you know. But my dad was Baptist, heavily into church, and he would come by and get me and my younger brother Michael every Sunday, take us to church. And I remember one day coming back home, he had this old Volkswagen Beetle. It's like a 77 or something like that. And in the back of it, he had this book by Les Brown, all right, personal development coach, mentor, one of the greats when it comes to this stuff, Les Brown. And that was my dad. That wasn't him. Not that I knew of. My dad was a construction worker. He was a security guard. He was a taxi driver. He ended up getting robbed and shot and ended up dying. Somebody tried to rob him while he was driving his taxi. But so I see this book by Les Brown, and I take it. I steal the book out of my dad's car, right? Because I'm like, well, what is he doing with this book? Like, I thought it was interesting. I'm reading it for 5 or 10 minutes on the way back home, and I'm seeing this black guy that looks like me, and he's talking about, listen, if you can look up, you can get up. Never let someone else's opinion of you become your reality. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm hearing all of this. I had never heard of it before. And let alone it's coming from someone that looks like me. I'm hooked. I'm like, talk to me, Les, talk to me. You know what I mean? Like, because never let someone else's opinion of you become your reality resonated with me because of what the doctor said. So I took that book, man. I stayed up to about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning reading it from cover to cover, reading different parts of it over and over again. And at that point, I decided that I was going to have to get out of that environment. I decided that I was going to live a long, fruitful life. I didn't know how I was going to do it at that time, but I made that decision. So I know that's a pretty much a long-winded answer, but everything starts with a decision. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you have to decide to make that change. And then from there, you start to see things fall in place. And that's what happened with me.
Yeah. So much value in that, Ty. I can't even begin. So first of all, how old were you when you got that book in your hand? What
17.
17. Okay.
Now I was out of here at 17.
Right.
You know?
So you know, it's almost like you had an indirect benefit from hearing that conversation. That conversation woke you up to start living, and something from the download from up top came in and said, hey, I gotta live some life. And that ultimately connected to that book, which allowed you to get that decision. You're a very wise and fruitful businessman at this stage in your life. And you just said something very powerful. It starts with a decision. Yeah. So how can we help somebody that's, because I like practicality, right? I like to get in there and say, okay, well, if I'm looking to make a decision, because look, you know, we talk often. I just told you the other day, it's like I'm clearing my mind. I'm finding my next decision. I'm getting clear. For you, how would you instruct someone to get to a decision faster? Like, what would be a process to help connect to a decision where someone could take that next step or action in their life where they might otherwise be stumped or stuck and trying to figure out what that decision is? Because I find getting to the decision is often the most challenging part, right? Because then once you make it, it's like, okay, great, boom. So what do you suggest in that case? How to help someone actually make the decision that's faster, with more clarity? What could you put into that?
Yeah, so simple. It sounds simple, and oftentimes it is simple, but it is to stop being so smart, right? So and what I mean by that is, like, this is something that for myself, as I'm going through things and as I was going through learning marketing and running a business and not having that experience, is I was like kind of analyzing every single step. Like, I've got to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this. And it becomes this huge picture. And when we see this huge picture, it's almost impossible to walk from New York to California, right? It's insane. Yeah. But if I say, hey, I'll start here. I know I want to end up in California. I'm just going to start walking east to west. And I know I'm going to end up somewhere. So what I mean by stop being so smart is to stop overanalyzing it and just say, I want to do this, and then move forward to working on it. Because the thing that paralyzes us the most is not taking the right actions.
Sure.
We take actions that are planning actions, and that is, you know, we're writing notes down, right? I got the index cards here. We got notes, we got notebooks, and we've got, you know, notes on our phones, and we're the note master, right? But then we're not actually taking action on those things. And this is, again, no matter what level you get to, because I still have to remind myself of this. I have to, working on my Kindle business, right? One of the things I teach is Kindle publishing. So every single day I have this small little calendar that sits on my desk here, and I have to check this off. I can't go to sleep at night until this is checked off, or else I feel like like I'm the worst guy on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this does two things. It helps me to be accountable to myself when no one else may help me to be accountable, right? And it helps me to create this habit. Like the endorphins start to just rush when you're checking things off, and you can look back and you're like, man, this is a habit right here, right? So just the habit of checking them off, and also by the same token, not checking one of these off. Like I can't get back and I see that this day is unchecked, but I'm checking this one.
Yep.
How am I going to face my wife and my kids?
Tough. It's going to be hard. Yeah, you're going to struggle.
You know what I mean? But you have to get to the point of saying, let me jump into it. So use an example of most of your listeners, your viewers, what box would they fit in? Are they business owners? Are they, people that are...
Look, I'm honest, man. So, I've had this podcast for, 4 years, and I did it as a hobby. Right. Because I love this and I'm good at it, right? I'm actually really good at this part. And I was doing stuff for other people, so I never put all my focus on this. Right. And then I lost my sense of self because I wasn't being creative. And then most recently I said, no, dude, you get your podcast back going. Let's get your platform going. So I'm figuring that out right now. And I've been honest about that. Like I'm learning all these things, obviously from guys like you and other people, how important that is. So I'd say right now there's a mix. There's just a good mix and we're working on it. But people are listening. Dude, I've had over, 10,000 plus downloads on this thing with no... Yeah. And they come in every day. They're still listening. I'm like, wow, I've never done anything outside of create and it's working. So I was like, okay, now it's time to pour some gasoline on that fire. So to answer your question, because I'm not a bullshitter, it's a mix, man. I know people are listening. I don't know who the hell they are, what they're doing. I'm working on that.
So we'll give you a couple of examples. You're thinking about starting your business, right? Everyone is thinking about starting a business.
Sure, of course.
Go in and start your LLC. Right? Don't plan on it. Go in and start your doing business as. If you're not starting an LLC, because that might take a couple of $100 wherever you're at, right? It's usually going to be about $100 to maybe $300-400. Here in North Carolina, I think it's $175. Start that, right? If you don't have those funds, start your DBA. Your DBA is going to cost you $5 to $20 depending on where you're at. Make that action of starting your DBA, going down to City Hall or wherever you have to go in your town to do it. That's going to get you moving. And then every single day, do something that's going to push you forward. Again, it goes back to having habits, Manny. Like you work out, right? It's the habit of doing something every single day. Now, listen, we all have commitments. We all might have, a job. We might have school that we're going to. We might have a spouse. We might have children. So we're not going to always have 5, 6, 7 days to put into this thing that we're building. But every single one of us has 5 minutes. Sure. Every single one of us has 10 minutes, right? So even if you just have to put 5 minutes in it, starting tomorrow, do not go a day without doing something. I don't care if it's Sunday and you're religious, that's fine, right? 5 minutes. I don't care if it's the 4th of July, put 5 minutes in. I don't care if you're on vacation. Like people used to look at me like I'm nuts because I got my laptop while I'm working on vacation. I'm sitting on the beach and I'm like, man, I got to get my 5 minutes in. Now, I'm not saying 5 minutes at a minimum, right? But I'm saying that if you're cramped for time, at least 5 minutes. Now, if you can put an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours in, definitely do that. Give you an example. So develop, and the reason why you want to do this is because you want to develop the habit of becoming who you are. The rapper Tupac, I don't know what type of music you get into, right? But Tupac had this one saying that I read one time. He says, you can tell I'm a musician because every single day I'm in the studio. And I said, holy cow. Every single, regardless of what you may or may not know about him, he was a master of his craft because he said Prince, same thing. This Prince had a studio in his house, dude, right? Because that's how much of a musician he was. So you have to become a master of the craft at what you want to be dominant at. I'll give you an example. My wife yesterday, we got a little gym in the house, right? So I'm going in there at 5 minutes, right? But I'm Ty, the guy that is about his fitness and that's working out. I go in there, I'm lifting for maybe about 20 minutes it was. My wife says, That's your workout? And I explained to her, listen, I'm developing the habit of being the guy who is not satisfied with ever missing a day.
Sure.
Right? And that's what you have to do. You want to be the best dad, best father, develop that habit of never missing a day with your kids and doing something, right? Whatever it is, whatever it is.
The irony of what you just said. So last night we had, my girlfriend and I went to have dinner down the street, and we were walking back. I live on the strip. We were walking back, and we walked right over. We crossed the intersection where Tupac was shot, Flamingo and Cobalt, and there's a mural right there of his face. So you brought that up. I'm like, just connecting the dots there. But you said so many more powerful things there. Again, I always want to go back to, I understand and I love the habits concept, but talk to me about when you were first getting going in this. Because look, the reality is you have built a Kindle empire, to the tune of multi-millions of dollars a year, which everybody dreams of. You live a life where you have freedom. You got a beautiful family. And by the way, that resonates with people. My girlfriend and I were just talking about this before, because I had you on speaker when I called you earlier, and she's like, I love how he said that about his wife coming in, and that he can go back and have that conversation. Women and people just, they connect with that because that's human. It's being a human being, like you said. And so despite all those things that you do phenomenally well and have created for yourself, what was it like when you were first getting started? Because dude, it doesn't start like that. You have to develop that. You have to lead, you have to grow into that. So when you start making this business come together, what are some of the struggles early on, and what's a day in the life of Ty Cohen look like then, right? What the hell are you doing? Like, are you pulling, I don't know if you had hair or not. I was gonna say, you pull your hair out. I mean,
I actually had a little afro, yeah. So
okay, good. All right, good. So
I pulled it all out. Now
that's right. That's right. See, that's what building a multi-million-dollar company will do for you, man. It'll pull your hair out, but you'll be smiling ear to ear, even if you're hairless. What are people like? All right, dude, I get what you're saying. Like, talk to me about what it was like in those earlier days for you, and really what some of the struggles and the expectations are early on, and some of the battle wounds that you're going to develop are on those front lines at the beginning of the process. Because look, how long have you been doing this now, by the way? Like, so I guess 17, you picked up the book. You said
yeah.
30 was like your personal, like, help us fill that in.
So I had been trying to build businesses because I knew that, at 17, I knew that to get out of the hood and to help my family, those that wanted to be helped, I wasn't going to be able to do that working a 9 to 5.
Right.
I knew that there had to be a level of entrepreneurship there.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is, man, I started to really work hard. And I hate when people say that hard work is not a part of the equation. Now, I don't work as hard as I used to now. I'm always battling with myself about that because I do love work, and I like what I'm doing and I enjoy being productive. But there's a level of hard work. Listen, my wife used to have this joke, and she says the only way to get tired of bed sometimes is if I had a laptop on my nightgown. Right, and that get me in bed. And,
hey, baby, come to bed. I got your laptop.
But that's the level of commitment that was there. I was working at Walgreens Pharmacy. I would get off at 11 o'clock at night, and then at night come home and work from 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes, trying to figure this thing out. Because I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have anyone else to talk to. I didn't even know that there were things like seminars and conventions. That's how naive I was, right? So Les Brown says, and he says, sometimes you have to not know what you don't know, right? Because if we know too much, if we're too smart, then that holds us back. Like my first website that I built, dude, it was the opposite of what a website should be. It was a all black page with white text. Hardest thing on the planet to read. But it took me like 4 weeks to figure out the HTML code and to build that out and everything else. I'm reading through books, right? I'm about to date myself now because there wasn't the YouTube thing where I could go in and look at a video. So I'm reading through books and all types of foolishness and trying to figure it out. But that's what it took. Like it took every single day. I didn't have that philosophy of doing something every single day back then. It was natural. I was just doing something every day, every single day, right? I'm not thinking about it. Just doing it now, looking back in hindsight, and doing it to a massive degree where the social life wasn't there, right? Of course, I had my girlfriend, but the social aspect wasn't there. And then as I had my first kid, right, then that comes into the mix. So now you're balancing family and you're balancing whatever it is that you want to shoot for. And to be honest with you, people will tell you to try to have this balance, but balance is bogus.
Sure.
The way that I was able to deal with it back then was just being really open. The same way I deal with it now. It's telling my wife, telling my children, hey, listen, I need the next 2 hours off. I just now had to say it just now. You know, hey, I need the next 2 hours. You know, I'm going to be in my office. I'm doing a couple of podcast interviews. And after that, you know, whatever you guys have, let's rock and roll. Let's do it. You know, or saying, hey, I need the next 2 weeks uninterrupted within reason, right? You come in, you break your arm. Then, of course, you come in and you say, hey, Dad, this is what happened. But getting my family on board to that degree and letting them know that these 2 weeks that I'm going to take off, right, which just meant not giving you as much attention as I normally would, is for the greater good of us all, right? And getting them to understand that. And then once I had that time, I got the okay from the wife. I got the okay from the kids, making sure that I don't take their promise and squander it. Like, hey, Dad, okay, it's okay, right? Mom's gonna take me to practice this week, right? And you know, she's gonna take me to practice next week. And making sure that I put that time that I would have spent with them into use and not play around with it and be adamant about making sure that every second, every minute, every hour is used. So those things, man, there's something about once you start to make moves, everything else comes into play. And I know you've heard that before. I know it starts to sound cliche, but it is so true. Once you allow yourself to get into the zone, once you allow yourself to not be interrupted by little things like your phone ringing, you know, and feeling obligated to answering it, like Facebook dings and all the social media callings that come to us and not feeling obligated. Once you remove those distractions and get into the flow, everything else comes into the place to the point where it's hard to shut it off.
Sure.
Like if you're someone that's looking to build a business now, you move in that momentum and you start putting things in place the right way without having the distractions, it will be hard for the money to stop. Yeah. It will be hard for you to turn it off. And it just sounds unbelievable, me even saying that, but that's what I've seen for the last 15 years. You know, like that is just what I've seen because there's constant motion. One thing's building on top of the other. Relationships, whether you're building out your business, whether you're building out your mindset, right? Always having something around that you're putting into your mind. Like I've got this as a man thinking. I bought like 20 copies of this just to give away to friends and family, and to have 4 or 5 copies to sit around like on my nightstand and here and in the car, you know, listening to podcasts like this. So just being in the flow and totally consuming yourself with the direction that you want to go in. That's what I meant by balance is bogus. Sure. Because there's got to be times when you're putting all of the time into, not all, you're putting 75% of your time into this, or 60%, or 55% of your time into that. And then the other 45, the other 40% into other things. Sure. Then as you start to see more success, those numbers can kind of even out now.
How do you keep the faith? I love what you're saying. It's you know, your journey, you know, again, this what's so great about these conversations is there's, you know, we could spend days talking about how to extract all the great information that you have. When you're building in those early days and you're learning how to read code and you're grinding it out at 12 midnight and 1 and 2 a.m. What is continuing to push you forward in the face of the disappointments that you constantly experience? And how long before you started to generate any sort of money and start to say like, oh crap, this is working for me, versus chasing another rabbit and going off in a different direction? Like, how did you keep all that tight enough to know like, yeah, this is worth going into and shore up my thoughts right there in case it's a little off there, but like bring us in that direction so we can, you know, borrow some great thought from you there.
Yeah, you gotta have there's so many different things there, man. So as far as starting to see, I'm gonna start from the end and then.
Yep.
So as far as saying money, like the first couple of dollars that came in were major, in a sense of like, are you serious? Like this actually works? But now looking back at it, it was like, you know, $10 here, $15 here, you know, $97. I started selling on eBay. That was one of the things that I initially started doing, selling on eBay and then selling in collectible magazines and stuff like that. I was selling like action figures and comic books and just all types of stuff, right? Things that I was interested in at that time. So seeing where the first couple of sales came in, that right there proved that it worked. Like, so now my philosophy is, and I teach this to my students, is all you have to make is your first dollar. You make your first dollar, there's 7 or 8 billion people on this earth, depending on whoever's count you believe in, right? But you make your first dollar and that's it. Like that should be belief enough. That is that. When I made my first dollar on every new venture, because I tried a few different things, that right there is what kept me up at night. That right there is what kept me dreaming. It's like a guy, right? You go on your date, and ladies, if you're watching, I'm not sure how to put this in perspective for you, but for guys, right? We meet a young lady and we get her attention. And if that's the one that we really feel something about, we are thinking about her all day long. You know what I mean? I don't care who it is. You could be the toughest guy, or you're thinking about her. You think about her regularly. For some, the more you try to not think about her, the more you think about her, right? So when you start to make that first sell, that first dollar, whatever it may be, you're gonna think about that. And that's how it was for me. I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, man, well, how can I do more of this? So now how can I get more people to become aware of the service or the product that I'm offering, right? So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is, and like I said, I'm working backwards.
Sure.
Is having a reason why it must work. There's so many people that are okay with being where they're at, and that's okay too, right? No judgment zone here, right? As Christians would say. But if you want to get to the next level, then you have to have something that's going to push you there, because every single day is not going to be a day where you jump up and you say, hey, I want to work out today, or hey, I want to start this business. And then as you start to have those obstacles, man, I've had every obstacle in a book, right? That can make you say, this is it. I remember having to write the IRS a check for $400 and something thousand one day. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to work at Walmart. This is crazy. This is insane. You know what I mean? Like,
they didn't work for that, right?
That was a very discouraging time, right? But what that did for me was it made me to better understand taxes. It made me better understand saving more of my money, right, from the tax standpoint. It made me become a monster when it as it relates to making sure that I can, take advantage of the tax laws and things that are there, right, that are there to benefit us. It made me go out and seek the best CPAs and bookkeepers, right, and to get people that are anal about making sure that those things are in place. And it made me stay on top of them, because someone has to check the checks, right? If not, then you're all over the place, as you see like a lot of artists and entertainers, you see that. But so you have to have that reason why, right? And the reason why for me back then was I needed to move my family out of that environment that they were in. We just saw too much stuff. Like my mom's car got blown up one day. Like my younger brother was into some really foolishness, and he was dealing with some real gangsters, and we thought we were tough, you know what I mean? But when you think you're tough until you really, when we wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, my mom's car is on fire. That type of stuff, So you have these whys, and the same why is not going to stay with you for life, I don't think, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So it starts to change, because initially my why was, man, I just want to make more money to be the man, right? To like drive a better car and to, have more money, and that was it. But then the why moved to move my family out. And then the why moved to, providing for my mother, who was getting older in age. And then the why, as I started to have kids and a wife, became my children, and not having them having to go through the things that I went through. And then the why became, my wife has just started having, she's a nurse, right? She works with medically fragile kids. And just about a year ago, she started having back issues. So the why is, hey, what the hell are you still doing working? If you don't have to. come home and drive me nuts. Hopefully
Right.
she doesn't. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll make sure she sees that.
Right. Right. I don't mess with my happy home. But so thinking back, right, and looking and saying, what is your why? And it doesn't matter. I've had people say to me, well, Ty, I didn't have the obstacles that you had coming up, so it's harder for me to have a why. No, that's not true. There's something that you care about. Maybe you know someone that died of cancer. Maybe you know someone that has a family member that's suffering from mental illness, or maybe you know someone that's homeless. It doesn't have to directly be impactful to you, but it may be someone else that you care about. And then that could be your why. Let me build up this business so that I can get it to a point where I can start to donate to these different charities, or have the free time to start to contribute time to some of these things here. So the first thing is understanding your why, and it has to be super strong, and realizing that it will change, right, from year to year, not even year to year, but it will change over time.
Right.
And then getting excited about making that first sale, getting excited about helping people. Like now, the why is in our community, the Kindle Cashflow community, seeing people that are changing their lives, like that are making money using the system that I put into place. And then I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, man, not only are these people like the Seths and the Nates and the Bryans affected, right? Not only are they making money, but it's changing things for their families. It's getting their families to openly see things in a different way, hopefully have a different mindset. And then that person maybe will influence another person. And now this can happen for generations, and it can affect just tons of people just because I said, let me put together this program. And now a ton of people, hundreds of thousands of millions of people can be affected, people that I'll never even meet. So that becomes the why now.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, from doing some stuff with you, it builds belief into other people that aren't even associated to them, but just through the exposure of seeing those guys and those gals winning, somebody else is like, oh, God, that guy's doing it. I think I can do that, right? So it gives them this sense of hope that there's a possibility in there, which is, a beautiful thing. So with you, in the sense of like, talk to me about the landmines, right? And, look, you can talk about in life. You have so much wisdom because of your experience and what you've been through, as it relates to either personal development or business. I think you said something pretty interesting in there where people say, well, I haven't been through what you've been through, Ty. Finding that why people are kind of the thorn that has in their side, they're just not strong enough, so it's not moving them enough, right? They're in that level of comfort. So I think that comfort is like this other opposite of what the effect should be. It's like, yeah, it's nice to be comfortable, but it's also not, because it prevents you from having more of what you want. So what are some of the traps and landmines that you see out there that you would say, hey, look, I've been through this, so I want you to be aware of this, and I want you to keep this in mind, especially as it relates to kind of what's happening in the world right now? Because look, like I said before, people are struggling right now,
Yeah.
mostly mentally, lost their jobs, businesses are being shut down. Obviously, we're seeing it. Yours is thriving, which is amazing. Um, but there's people out there that can probably use some anticipation tactics where it's like, hey, I can get out ahead of this thing. So what do you say about that?
Man, I say one of the biggest things, and this is something that I've been seeing lately, is not identifying with the wrong group and falling into the victimhood of that, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not sympathetic and don't have empathy for them, but it could be something like, hey, saying, I'm Black, right? So I have to have it hard, or everyone is racist towards me, or, every cop is an asshole or is a bad guy, so not being careful of falling into this particular group and identifying with it so much that you also bring along with it all of the setbacks that can hold you back. Now, again, does that stuff happen? Absolutely. Not naive to it. It's happened to me several times. I'm not non-sympathetic to when it does happen to someone. Saying, listen, well, I'm too old, right? That's another one that we hear. I'm too old to learn something new. My mom used to say that a lot. And it used to drive me nuts knowing everything that's possible, regardless of who you are, how young you are, how old you are, what color you are, what religious background you come from, knowing what's still possible, right? So not falling to that, not falling into the group of I'm a female, so I've got, limitations, or guys are not going to take me serious, right? Or I'm young and people are not going to take me serious. There's so many different things that we can fall into if we want to. We can say, hey, guys with gray sweaters on, they always have it hard, and now that sets us back. So being very careful with what group you identify with. The other thing is, man, is just realizing that almost anything that we want to accomplish, we can actually do it, and not just thinking that those are words, right? It does take a lot of work. It does take sacrifices. The sacrifices, as I told you earlier, with not having a social life, right? So not going out to clubs and not doing all of that stuff when I was younger and everyone else was doing it, right? Or minimizing it. Now, at this point, right, being at a point where, like I said, when we go on vacation, sometimes we might go with friends and family members, and if we go with family, when they go on vacation, it's 100% vacation. It's I've left everything, and I don't have a care in the world right now until we get back on Monday. But knowing that I'm still going to work to a degree, right? Again, it might be the 5 minutes, might be the 5 hours. Now, luckily enough, I found a group, right, where I have this group where sometimes we'll go on vacations and it's the norm for them. They're working, they're putting in their hour or 2 hours or whatever. So making sure that you don't fall into the wrong group, and also finding the right groups to associate with, that's going to, you have to align yourself with groups where the success that you're after, regardless of what type of success, is beyond normal for that group. So, and I'm going to say that again, because I think a lot of people need to hear that. That is finding a group, whether that's one individual or 1,000 individuals, where they are actively seeing the success that you are after, or they're working towards it, and it is normal. Because when you're trying to start a business or you're trying to be at an A+ level, you can seem like you're so alienated, no one understands you, you have no one else to talk to. And that can be discouraging, man, because we want to be normal, right? So we start to normalize ourselves, and we start to drop down to these levels of what's supposed to be normal, because we don't want the people that's around us that love, like, and care about us to feel any type of way about themselves.
Sure.
Sure. Or to think that we're better than them. Right. So the human psyche is weird, man. You have to really be able to plug into it, recognize when things are happening, talk to yourself. Hey, man, I see what's going on, but you're trying to not get me to work out today. Come on, man. I thought we were boys, right? Yep. And I see what's happening. Listen, and be crazy enough to talk to yourself sometimes and identify when your brain is trying to protect you. So.
And be okay with that, right? And really have that level of compassion and kindness to yourself. It's almost like being your own best friend, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Which is odd, because I think that we have these conversations with ourselves, but yet the same dialogue that takes place in between our own two ears, if we were to hear somebody else talking that way and we were to instruct them or give them guidance, we would never let them accept that type of a dialogue, but we give it permission in our own heads, which is unique. So it's like, hey man, be cool, be nice to yourself, right? So what do you still struggle with, Ty? Like you've got a great life. You've got a beautiful family. You've got, like, I mean, again, I don't know what you have in your bank account, but your business is doing phenomenal. You've got money. You've got a beautiful home. You live in the rural woods of North Carolina. It's like, what do you still have a tough time with? Like, what brings you to, human life again, where other people can say, damn, all right, I guess it is normal to, do good things and still have some struggles and what have you.
Yeah, right now I'm struggling with the sun. I'm going to go close the blinds real quick.
Yeah, that's a good one right there. Yeah, that's a hot, brother man, getting hot in there.
All right, so let me close this and let's see here. Hopefully this will be a little bit better here. Let's see. All right, cool. So man, so that's a great question. So there's never going to be a point in life where you're not going to have some struggles, right? So for me, part of the struggles is dealing with growth, right? So when you start to get employees and dealing with growth on that side, it could be struggles where you're dealing with people that are close to you, whether it's family, right? Because once you start to get to a certain level, you can be selective about the people that you associate with, friendship-wise. But growth is a thing, man. Like, people that see your growth as being like dangerous to them could be something that can screw with you. So you'll see people that think that you're better than them because, you don't want to hang out anymore, or you want to shift, drinking wine on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to, studying personal development or spending time with your family. That becomes dangerous to them because it's a reminder that, they may not have grown, right? They need a t-shirt. They need to always be on the grow t-shirt. So those things right there, and always being able to identify when you're making the right moves, when you're not making the right moves as it relates to friends and family, all right? Because you're gonna have a lot of tension in most cases with that, especially as there's this level of separation and different things. The other thing is, like I said, if you start to build up a business where you want to get employees, right? So that, whether they're 1099 or whether they're salaried employees, so just getting good people, right? So getting people that are going to be in alignment with where you want to move at, right? There's things that come along with growth that can only be seen once you get to that next area, right? So it could have been like the IRS issue I talked about, right? Or now, thankfully, that didn't go in a place where it could have gotten bad, right? So I was able to take care of that right away.
Let me ask you a question real quick about that, because I want people to be able to connect real quick. When you wrote that check, had you made good, smart money decisions already, where if you wrote the $400,000 check, it wasn't like you're back to zero? Or did you have enough money in your bank account where you're like, fuck, this one hurts, but I'm still good. I'm still good. Right?
No, I had enough in the account. I wasn't doing anything.
Got it.
So I wasn't doing anything. Like, we travel every once in a while, but we weren't doing anything, right? We lived in a really modest house. We weren't, driving car. We just weren't, because I didn't have time. I was working in the business.
Sure.
Right? Which is another thing. So going back to that balance of, listen, knowing when you have to chill out with work as well. That's another thing. I was working one time in 90 plus hours a week, and I ended up having a sickle cell anemia crisis that put me in the hospital for weeks, and I missed my 10-year-old's birthday party.
Wow.
Right? This was 6 years ago. He's 16 now. 6 years ago. I'll never forget it, because I said, I'm never going to let that happen again, where I allow myself to get sick enough to the point where I missed a milestone birthday, or birthday in general, or anything that's important. And I remember my wife coming up, and she's like, we got all this money saved up and we don't do anything.
Yeah.
And I was like,
interesting.
Yeah, I was like, crap, like, I'm too busy like making it and I'm not living. So you have to live too. It goes back to that balance. So you just have to live.
That's a fascinating topic, and I want to go back to that, but go ahead, continue your thought.
No, I was just saying, so sometimes even scheduling things out. So now we'll schedule things out. Forced vacations, right? Where it's on the calendar, it's paid for already, or you're committed, right? You put a deposit, something, right? Date nights. On my phone, I've got, and I gotta try to say this slow so she doesn't hear. 9:30 in the morning, do something nice for my wife every day. 9:30 in the morning, right? Because sometimes you have to schedule these things out, right? And that includes making sure that you are reaping the rewards from the hard work that you put in. Now, the first year or two that you're in the grind, the first 3 years, maybe not, right? Because you're still building out. But don't get to a point where you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years in, and you've got so used to just working and building it up that you forgot this side. Because usually this side is why we start working on this side. But you get so many people where, again, habit, it goes to back what I was saying, like you build that habit and you get addicted to grinding it out that you forget, like, man, the reason why I'm doing this is, because of my whys, but also to have some fun, to go in and to chill out. So
Do you think, I want to hear what your opinion is on the whole, because in a culture like today, I think it's a very interesting dynamic that's taking place right now. First of all, you got these guys that are preaching, and you've said it a few times, hard work, bust your ass, crush it, Gary V, Grant, work, 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 work. They're talking from a place of like, where they're at. I get it. But then there's also this, like you just said, there's this part where you have to make a decision to take some time for yourself, right? So based off of the, I guess you could say, the peaks and the valleys of what's happening early on, like you're in growth mode, like you're in the first phase, like you have to get after it to get something even worth earning something in return to be able to go out and celebrate, right? Because if you don't do that front end work, that hustle, that grind, well, there's a good chance you're probably not going to get enough money to be able to go out and celebrate, right? So do you feel that it adjusts, like that dynamic adjusts with time and based on what results you produce? Because it's a very, very fascinating conversation to bring to the table in terms of that balance and celebrating. I love how you said it, because my lady and I were having a conversation yesterday about that whole thing, what we want to create and build. And it was spectacular. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that. I mean,
yeah, because there's two groups, right? There's the hustle, and then there's the, life short, chill out, relax, and so I think that this is where personal development comes into play, right? This is where things like meditating comes in. I'm the last guy that ever thought I would be meditating, to be honest with you. But that is my daily, like if I don't meditate if I miss 2 days of not meditating, I don't feel right. Because it's this chance to get away. Now, everything is not going to be, let's go out to Paris, right? Everything is not going to be, let's go out to Vegas where Manny's at and just have a great weekend or a great week. You can have your getaways right in your mind, man. And that is meditating. That is taking, my mornings start by me working out. It includes me meditating. It includes me reading something. And that helps me to get away. In the afternoons, it might be me going in, walking the trail that we have around here. It might be me just jumping in a car and, doing something else, whatever it might be. It might be me going to the gun range on Saturday or Sunday, right? Hanging out with my wife. The biggest reward for me, man, is being able to, at any given moment, any given time, saying to my wife, hey, let's go do lunch or let's go get dinner. It may not seem super big, you know what I mean? But like right now, like just being able to jump up and say, let's go do this, right? And that's that. We've been talking about going away for a while on a vacation. And she usually does the planning, right? But I'm like thinking about it now, like that right there, just getting up and going to dinner or whatever and going anywhere, right, is more exciting to me than going on vacation sometimes. It sounds weird, but it's a certain level of freedom that I really, really, really enjoyed it.
I think getting clear on that, Ty, what you're saying is important, like figuring out what that means to you, right? What is that do you spend enough time with yourself to figure out how I want to live my life? So you said something you get up, you work out, you meditate. I love how you said that. You can have getaways in your own mind. I'm like, damn, that's a hell of a thought right there. That's really good. What happens if you don't do one of those things? I imagine you're not a robot, so you don't have every day where you do this like definitively. We're human. I know I've messed up on routines and missed a day, and I'm like, how do you not make yourself a bad person when you miss a meditation session or you miss 5 minutes of this or whatever that is?
I'm still working on it.
Okay. All right.
But, so what I do is habit stacking, man. Habit stacking helps me to not miss, right? So habit stacking is, again, plugging each one in. And I do it almost in a robotic way. I keep water, right, on my nightstand. I keep them in my office all over the damn place too, like a madman. So first thing I get up, I'm going in, brushing my teeth, and then guzzling a bottle of water, right? And I switch it up because depending on who you talk to, what you read, some of the bottles are not good for you, some of them are bad for you, it can drive you nuts, right?
Yeah.
So I get up, give some thanks, go in the bathroom, brush my teeth, and I'm downing one of these. I take some supplements, and then on my mirror, I've got these markers. I don't think I have one in here, but they're basically mirror markers, and I write 5 things that I'm grateful for today. Sometimes it's extravagant, sometimes it's simple, like, being clear, being grateful, being at peace, right? Other times it might be a little bit more detailed. And then after that, going in to work out, taking a shower. Then after that, I'm coming down and I'm meditating. And I like to meditate in a different area so I don't get too used to it. So I might meditate on the floor. I might meditate in the living room. I might meditate in the office. It's always switching it up. And then after that, I'm coming in and I don't know where my book is at now, but I'm grabbing one of my books and I'm reading the book. And then after that, in my book, I have my goal sheet. So I'm writing out my goals as well after I read. So everything is connected, right? It's one thing after the other. Now, do they all happen in that order all the time? No. Does it happen where I get them all done? Sometimes no, right? Different things happen where whatever might happen that throws you off. But at least I know that I've done one of those things out of the 5 or 6, right? It usually takes me an hour to get all of them done. And that's how I stay committed to getting them done. Because I know that if I give myself an hour and 10 minutes, it's not going to happen because I don't have that much time to cram it all in.
Right.
So it forces me to jump out of bed, doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and get up. It forces me to not dilly-dally too much on my time because I know I have to one thing after the next if I need to get this done within the hour.
So your method's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to get out of bed?
Yeah, and that's not even mine. I can't even take credit with that.
Right.
That's you know Mel Robbins?
Mel Robbins, yep.
That's Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
So I read that book a couple years ago, and that's my method for procrastinating with everything. Getting on an interview like this, if I got the butterflies in my stomach, the hell with it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. Put the headphones on, turn it on. Because she's so right, man. The theory behind that is the more we think about it, the more we give ourselves reasons not to do it. So if I lay in bed past that 5 seconds, I can justify why I should be in bed. And God forbid I turn around and look at my wife, because then I'm like, oh, let me cuddle with her.
Yeah.
So it's like putting blinders on at the same time, You got to have all these tricks, man. So I sleep facing towards the window where the sun is coming out. I leave the blinds open at night. So boom, that's another thing. So you have to set up your environment, right? I know that water is something that's good for me, and it's going to help with that cellular activity, which also helps you to wake up faster in the morning. So setting up your environment with all of these little things that piggyback off of the other.
I think it's great. And I like your approach there where you have I think giving yourself the peace of mind where if you get 1 or 2 of them done and you don't get the full stack done, then you're happy with yourself. You're like, hey, I got something done. It's a victory there, right? That's a good thing. I'm going to be mindful of our time here because I don't want to have you all day because I could do this with you for more hours.
Hey, one last thing, Benny, I want to throw in there is you have to be competitive.
Yeah.
You have to be competitive. You have to find somebody that you don't like. Now, this is not what I do, but I'm thinking about how do I get other people to do this. For me, I want to be competitive with whoever's in my neighborhood or, Marty and Josh were on our team. Josh gets up really early. So I'm like, I got to beat Josh. Josh is younger than me. So I'm like, I have to show him that even though you're younger than me, that doesn't mean jack. I'm still going to whoop you behind there. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
So you have to be competitive. You find the person that you don't like. Maybe she thinks she's all that. Watch, I'm going to show her. I'm going to get my workout in. She's probably not even working out. Talk junk while you're doing it. Yeah. She's probably not even working out. That's why she's got the bags under her arms. And whatever works for you.
I love it. Yeah. No, it's great. That's the key right there. And that's the pursuit of finding the ideal situation. What works for you, right? Because there's a lot of concepts and a lot of ideas and practical pieces of information that we try and that we borrow and we're like, I like that, but it's like, fuck, something's not right, man. Let me try something different, right? Which is important. I want to ask you this question, and I want you to kind of clean the slate from everything we've talked about today.
Yep.
And I want you to think about this. If Ty Cohen didn't do, I would say three, but this is going to require you to think a little bit. I know you're a good thinker. If Ty Cohen didn't do these two things during his process or his life, he wouldn't be where he is today. If you didn't do these two things, what would those two things be to help you become the man that you are today? Right? I know you talked about habits and all these other things. So like we're putting that aside. I want you to introduce two new concepts before we wrap up here in just a minute.
If I did, so two things that if I did not do over the
Correct.
course of my journey.
Correct.
Man, damn, that's a good one. I'm gonna have to steal that one. I might listen to my podcast and hear.
Yeah, man. Please, brother. Come on, man. We're the family. Let's go.
So the first thing is to a level not caring about what people say.
Damn, that's powerful. Yep. See.
You know what I mean? Like, because what with the first couple of times when I heard friends and family like, "Hey, man, why are you working while you're on vacation?" Like, not meaning it in any bad way. It bothered the heck out of me. You know what I mean? I'm like, just saying that, like, hey, why are you working, you know, for the 10 minutes that you're working or whatever while you're on vacation? Like, bothered me. But I also had to get to the realization that that is why I'm able to take a vacation anytime I want versus having to wait until my boss or my job says you get these 2 weeks, right? Because I put the 10 minutes in. So that would have been one.
Let me jump in real quick. What shifted for you there? Because that's not something very simply done. Like to, again, assuming your life is A, B, C, and D, you have all these experiences. To stop caring what people think about you, how do you just cut that off? And then, because that's a real big quantum leap in terms of progress in life and success. So for you, what was it? Were you just like, this is too important to me? Like, so I'm just trying to get inside your head a little bit so someone can understand like what you really did there at a more deep level.
Yeah.
To own that.
No, because we could get addicted to that stuff, right? We can get addicted to what people think about us.
Right.
And before you know it, we're worrying about what everyone says about us, from customers all the way down to family members, to friends, to neighbors. Realizing that you're not going to be able to change anyone. Listen, we see it all the time, right? We see it on Facebook. We see the Democrats or Republicans arguing with one another back and forth. And some have really good arguments. Some take time and they write up these long arguments as to why their side is right. But the other person, if they're not open-minded to read back and be willing to say, well, maybe this is right, you're not going to change their mind. They have to be willing to change their mind. So just knowing that I'm not going to change their mind at all. And then, man, I went to school at Medgar Evers in Brooklyn, New York for about 4 months.
Right? It's like he's getting ready to say, 3 years. 4 months.
And I noticed, like, and we used to have been, I was raised in Connecticut, so Connecticut being so close to New York, we'd always be there, like, sometimes every day, every weekend. New Yorkers could care less about what you think. So I started to adapt this personality of being a New Yorker and saying, you know what, I could care less if people think I'm not hanging out and going to the club. I could care less if, they think I got this hoopty, but I'm working on my business. I could care less if, whatever it may be. Because again, if you start to care so much that you fall victim to when your buddies say, hey, let's go out this weekend. And, you're like, hey, I'm going to work on my business. And then especially if you're a younger guy, right, you start to get razzed. They start to give you a hard time. Oh, man, come on. Yeah. We know it.
Yeah.
You're at the club, you're throwing shots back, and it's $200 later, and then the next morning you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're like, stupid.
Like, damn, did I just do that? Oh, that one hurts.
So that's one of the things, man, is just not caring. And then the other thing is discipline. Like working on discipline in every single area of your life, because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. If you're disciplined and you're eating, you're going to be disciplined in when it's time to work out. It's going to be discipline that helps you to work on your business at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night when you can easily just go to bed, right? It's going to be that discipline that says, let me get up an hour early so I can work on my hour of power or so I can work on my notes or whatever it might be. So the discipline and applying that in the way where you build that exercise, that muscle, so that when you see your phone and you get a text, you're disciplined enough to say, I'm going to check it in a half hour. Like something as small as that. Let me not check it right now. Disciplined enough to go on Facebook and see all of the notifications and realize that they're there and close it out without checking. So working on your discipline is in so many different ways. Walking into Dunkin' Donuts and being disciplined enough to smell the coffee and not get one. Get a bottle of water instead. Not get a donut, right? Or if you get one that is gonna be, lower in calories or whatever. So playing this game of discipline, and that was something that I really challenged.
Look, man, if I don't ask that question, we don't get any more of them good golden nuggets out of you, man. You got to make sure. Anything else that you have that you think would be valuable that's on your mind that you want people to hear or to know? And then I'll ask you my last question. It always has to do with, what's something around this guy here on my shirt. But yeah, man, I mean, anything that you think that, you didn't get a chance to say or educate on behalf of, for whatever, man, just whatever comes to mind, brother.
Yeah. So here's another thing, man. It's, how we talk about Mel Robbins and she has this NASA liftoff 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think also approaching the things that you want to do in life and the opposite of that. So meaning, whenever you get an idea for something, right, acting on it immediately. So I wanted to take these comedy classes, right? I think I'm a funny guy sometimes. My wife says that my humor is only humor that I can appreciate. So I'm like, shoot, I probably would kill it with comedy classes. So getting the idea, immediately searching to see if there's some classes that can be taken, right? And then signing up for them. Because the longer that you wait on something, the less likely it is to happen. That's an example that may not apply to anyone, but to everyone. But, if you're thinking about, listen, working out, we were talking about working out, right? I mean, so many people say, I'm going to stop and I'm going to start working out after New Year's or after Thanksgiving. I just talked to my family the other day. I said, let's kill sugar. Like, let's go 6 weeks without sugar. And the first thing that they said is the holidays are coming up. And I'm like, yes, but that's the beauty of, this is the best time ever to do it because of that. Because the holidays are coming up and because, you'll have so many opportunities to have sugar. What better time to test your discipline? You don't test your discipline when there's no sugar around because that's easy.
Yeah. You
test it when the pies and the cakes and everything else is around. And so working on your discipline.
I love it, man. I think it's beautiful. So last question I have for you, man. What for you, what does always on the grow mean to you?
Yeah, man. So for me, always on the grow is always taking it one step further. And again, not getting caught in just any one direction, right? I'm always trying to be a better husband.
Sure.
So, I might be listening to podcasts or YouTube videos that talk about that, getting better at running Facebook ads or being a business person or a father. And all of these things are continuous areas of growth that if we want to get better, there's always someone that's much better at it than us, right? So looking at their material, the content that they published in. So that's continued to grow for me. I think that it's so easy to come home from work, regardless of what you do, and get dinner, sit on the couch, and then repeat the process the next day. Right? Everyone's doing, not everyone, but the majority of people are doing that to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. But again, challenging yourself to say, all right, I just put in 8 hours. I am still tired, but let me do some jumping jacks. Let me do something, that's going to give me a little bit of energy, and then I'm going to cram this energy into a learning period so I could do something different that's going to set me apart from everyone else.
Yeah, that's profound, man. That's what I love. Everybody has a unique perspective on that. And I think, the way you frame it sort of has some connectivity to the macro of what it is that matters in terms of progression and the power of that at the same time. So, Man, like I said to you before, I told you this off camera, um, behind the scenes, and I mean it. There's people that come into your life, the reasons, the seasons, the lifetimes type of stuff. We've all heard that fun one. Uh, the season that you came into my life, just this summer, and so the experience that we've been able to have these last 6 months, um, you have contributed not only to my personal transformation in what you developed in
Right.
terms of a platform and a business and an opportunity to come in and sharpen some skills and grow and evolve, um, and what you've been able to do. And I'm acknowledging you for everything you've done, and I'm giving you just tremendous kudos here because you're a badass. Be the example. I'm a big fan of the example, right? Doing it in a way where other people look at you and they are, like, wow, that guy's impressive. Family, came from this background and that story, and continues to be humble and have that humility. And I love that about you, man. I just really, not everybody. Look, I think power in man is also having a level of vulnerability, and I think commitment to just being real at a level where somebody understands you. And it's not about, and I get the achiever and I get the badass and winning and all that stuff, but there's also just this connectivity to human being, right? So you provide that, and I've only been able to understand that through experience with you, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So everything you do is just pretty fucking cool, man. So I just want to let you know that I genuinely appreciate for who you are and what you continue to do and provide for others. And I know it's just going to keep getting better and better for you as you continue to find yourself and evolve. And I mean, with everything you've done from a business, in the internet marketing space, on the Kindle platform, on Amazon, um, changing lives is just great, man. And I guess, like, I'm speaking on behalf of all of us, but we're all thankful. I know I certainly am, for allowing us to come in and be a part of that with you, right? So, hey, man, put her there, the old pound right there, man, the old
Yeah,
pound.
I greatly appreciate that, man. For anyone that's listening or watching this, right? I want you to understand that there's gonna be times when things are just amazing and you ride those waves, and then we're all human. There's gonna be times where you and your wife might, or your significant might have issues. It's normal. Happens to me. Happens to everyone, right? If anyone tells you that things are always gonna be perfect, run, because they're lying their ass off, right?
Right.
Gonna be times where maybe you and your kids, we're going through something right now with my oldest daughter, right? So that's part of a season, right? So now there's valleys and peaks to this stuff. There's going to be times where you might get the flu, you might get pneumonia or whatever, and it knocks you on your back. The thing is, as Les Brown said in that book that I first read, if you can look up, you can get up. So regardless of what obstacle you're going through, regardless of when you get knocked down, you can't give up.
Yeah.
Like, you can't give up, and you just have to just be humorous with it sometimes, and say, who better than this to happen? Like, of course, me. I can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I had the issue with the IRS, are you serious? Like, these guys, maybe they're making a joke here. There's a zero or two back there.
Especially when they can just print money, man. Come on now.
Exactly. But say, you know what? Listen, I'm going to put myself in a position where this doesn't happen again, and that I owe them 3 or 4 times this amount.
Yeah, that's a good
So
thing.
looking at it like, this is cool, but this is all I owe? Like, shit, I haven't been working. Like, I need to owe much more than that. After you doing everything that you can to make sure that you're maximizing, the deductions, and making sure that you're minimizing what you pay.
Sure.
But always understanding that as you grow, with growth comes bigger and better problems, and realizing that that's part of that growth process. It's saying, hey, who better than me? Have a chuckle, don't take yourself too serious, and keep it moving. That's it.
That's right. I love it, man. And look, people can, find out more about you and your business. I know you got the Kindle Cash Flow, you did Kindle Cash Flow King, all that. You got social media, you got YouTube, you're putting out some great content, right? What are all those channels and handles and websites, man? Give yourself a little boost here, with the growing community, right? We're working towards those millions of followers and tribes, members, and men and women. So throw it out there, man. What you got?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys might see the website address on here. I don't know if you can see it, Manny, or not. I think once the video renders, you'll see it. But kindlecashflow.com. So kindlecashflow.com. You can also reach out to me on my website, tycohen.com. So tycohen.com. You can reach me on social media anywhere at Ty Cohen, or if you don't find it at Ty Cohen, you can flip it around to Cohen Ty. And I'm on everything: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I mean, my daughter, who's 13 years old, even has me on TikTok right now.
Hey, yo, that's good. Make sure you go over to TikTok and look at Ty dancing all funny and silly and
Yeah, you want to see that?
doing
You
some
want
stand up.
listen? If you're ever down and out and you're having a bad day, check out my TikTok page.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love it. Hey, you probably even be on there cracking some jokes too, man.
Hey, man.
Get a little chance to see some Ty in action. That's good.
Hey,
Cool,
this
man.
appreciate it.
I appreciate you, brother. Hey, great chat here as always, man. To many more blessings in the future. Let's go get it, and let's come back here when this show is exponentially grown and continue to get you some more eyeballs, man. Because God knows you got some hearts and some minds to change, and that's what's important, man. So keep it up, brother. Appreciate you. Cool.
Likewise,
All
likewise.
right, champ. You got it, man.